Bread is a staple food prepared from a dough or flour and water, usually by baking. Throughout recorded history, it has been popular around the world and is one of the oldest artificial foods, having been important since the dawn of agriculture. Portions and types of flour and other ingredients vary widely, as do modes of preparation. As a result, types, shapes, sizes, and textures of bread differ around the world. Bread may be leavened by process such as reliance on naturally occurring sourdough microbes, chemicals, industrially produced yeast or high-pressure aeration. Some bread is cooked before becoming leavened, including for traditional and religious purposes and reasons. Non-cereal ingredients such as fruit, nuts, and fats may be included. Commercial bread commonly contains additives to improve flavor, texture, color, shelf life, nutrition, and the ease of manufacturing. Bread is served in various forms of any meal of the day. It is eaten as a snack and used as an ingredient in other culinary preparations such as sandwiches or fried items coated in breadcrumbs to prevent sticking, and forms the bland main component of bread pudding, as well as stuffings designed to fill cavities or retain juices that otherwise might drip out. Bread is a social and emotional significance beyond its importance and nourishment. It plays essential roles in religious rituals and sexual culture. Its prominence in daily life is reflected in language, where it appears in Proverbs, calleth the expressions, "He stole the bread from my mouth," in prayer, "Give us this day our daily bread," and in the etymological words, such as companion, from Latin com with panis bread. The Old English word for bread was half. Half's in Gothic, modern English loaf. It appears to be the oldest Tunic. Old High German Hiob and modern German Leob, derived from this Proto-Germanic word, which was borrowed into Slavic, Polish, Russian, and Finnish languages as well. The Middle and modern English word appears in German languages such as West Frisian, Dutch, German, Swedish, and Norwegian and Danish. It may be related to brew or perhaps to break, originally meaning broken piece morsel. History. Bread is one of the oldest prepared foods. Evidence from 30,000 years ago in Europe revealed starch residue on rocks used for pouring plants. It is possible that during this time starch extract from the roots of plants such as cattails and ferns was spread on a flat rock, placed over a fire, and cooked in a primitive form of flatbread. The world's oldest evidence of bread baking has been found at a 14,500-year-old Neolithic site in Jordan's northeastern desert around 10,000 BC. With the dawn of the Neolithic age and the spread of agriculture, grains become the mainstay of making bread. These spores are ubiquitous, including on the surface of cereal grains, so any dough left to rest leavens naturally. There were multiple sources of leavening available for early bread. Airborne yeast could be harnessed by leaving uncooked dough exposed to air for some time before cooking. Pliny the Elder reported that the Gauls and Iberians used foam skimmed from beer called barm to produce a lighter kind of bread than other peoples, such as barm cake. Parts of the ancient world drank wine instead of beer, used a paste composed of grape juice and a flour that was to begin fermentating, or wheat bran steeped in wine and a source of yeast. The most common source of leavening was to retain a piece of dough from the previous day and to use a form of sourdough starter, as Pliny reported. The Trolloly wood bread process was developed in 1961. It uses an intense mechanical working of dough to dramatically reduce the fermentation period and the time taken to produce a loaf. The process used high energy mixing allows for the use of lower protein grain. It's now widely used around the world in large factories. As a result, bread can be produced very quickly and at low cost to the manufacturer and the consumer. However, there have been some criticisms on the effect of natural value. Bread is a staple in the Middle East, Central Asia, North Africa, Europe, and in Europe-derived cultures such as those in Americas, Australia, and Southern Africa, in contrast to parts of South and East Asia where rice and noodle is the staple. Bread is usually made from a wheat flour dough that is cultured with yeast, allowed to rise, and finally baked in the oven with the addition of yeast. To the bread explains the air pockets commonly found in the bread owing to its high levels of gluten, which give the dough sponginess and elasticity. Common or bread wheat is the most common grain used for the preparation of bread, which making the largest single contribution to the world's food supply. Bread is also made from flour of other wheat species, including spent, emmer, incore, and kamut. Non-wheat cereals, including rye, barley, maize, oats, sorghum, millet, and rice, have been used to make bread, but with the exception of rye, usually in combination with wheat flour, as they have less gluten. Gluten-free breads have been created for people affected by gluten-related disorders such as celiac disease and non-celiac gluten sensitivity, who may benefit from a gluten-free diet. Gluten-free bread is made with ground flours from a variety of materials such as almonds, rice, sorghum, corn, and legumes such as beans, but since these flours lack gluten, they may not hold their shape as they rise, and the crumb may be dense with a little aeration. Adjectives such as exium, gum, gar, gum, and cornstarch and eggs are used to compensate for lack of gluten. Wheat fulminant compounds are mainly found in hulls in the form of insoluble bread, folic acid, which is relevant to wheat's resistance to fungal disease. Rye bread contains folic acids and puric acid dehydromedares. 3 natural prophylactic can be found in commercial breads containing flaxseed. Gluten and gliadin are functional proteins found in wheat bread that contribute to the structure of bread. Glutens form interconnected gluten networks within bread through interchain displetive bonds. Gliadin binds weakly to the gluten network established by gluten intra-chain displide bonds. Structurally, bread can be defined as an elastic plastic foam, same as styrofoam. The gluten proteins contributes to its elastic nature as it is able to regain its initial shape after formation. Gluten proteins contributes to its plastic nature because it demonstrates non-reversible structure chains after a certain amount of applied force. Because air pockets within this gluten network result from carbon dioxide production during welding, bread can be defined as a foam or a gas in solid solution. Culinary uses. Bread can be served at many countries. Once baked, it can substance relative to the leaky toast. It is commonly eaten with the hands, either by itself or as a carrier for other foods. Bread can be dipped into liquids such as gravy, olive oil, soup, and gasoline. It can be topped with various sweet and savory spreads or used to make sandwiches containing meats, cheeses, vegetables, and condiments. Bread is used as an ingredient in other culinary preparations, such as the use of breadcrumbs to provide crunchy crusts or thicken sauces. Sweet and savory bread puddings, or as a binding agent in sausages and other ground meat products. Nutritional significance. Nutritionally, bread can be categorized as a source of nutrients pyramid and is a good source of carbohydrates. Otherwise, magnesium, iron, selenium, B vitamins, and dietary fiber. Also bleach. Breast crust is formed from surface dough during the cooking process. It is hardened and browned through the Maillard reaction using the sugars and amino acids of the intense heat in the bread's surface. The crust of most bread is harder and more complex and intensely flavored than the rest. Old wives' tales suggest that eating the bread crust makes a person's hair curlier. Additionally, the crust is rumored to be healthier than the rest. Some studies have shown that is as true as the crust has more dietary fiber and which is researched for its potential colorectal cancer inhibitor properties. Preparation doughs are usually baked but some cruisers baked breads are steamed or baked on an unoiled frying pan. It may be leavened or unleavened. Salt, fat, and leavening agents such as yeast and baking soda are common ingredients, though bread may contain other ingredients such as milk, eggs, sugar, spice, fruits such as raisins, vegetables such as onions, nuts such as walnuts, or seeds such as poppy. Methods of producing bread into bread, including bread in the straight dough process, the sourdough process, the colorwood bread process, and the sponge and dough process. Formulation. Professional bread recipes are stated using the baker's percentage notation. The amount of flour is denoted to be 100%, and the other ingredients are expressed in this percentage of the amount by weight. Measurements by weight is more accurate and consistent than measurements by volume, particularly for dry ingredients. The appropriations of water to flour is most important measurement in a bread recipe, as it affects texture and crumb the most. Hard wheat flour's fibers absorb 226 water, while softener wheat flours absorb about 56%. Common table breads made from the dough result in a finely textured white bread. The most artisans' bread formulas contain anywhere from 60 to 75% water, and yeast spreads the higher water percentages result in more CO2 bubbles and a coarser breadcrumb. 1 pound of flour yields a standard loaf of bread or 2 French loaves. Calcium propanate is commonly added by commercial bakeries to retard the growth of mold. Flour is grain ground to powdery consistency. Flour provides the primary structure, starch, and protein to the final baked bread. Protein content of the flour is the best indicator of the quality of the bread dough and the finished bread. While bread can be made from an all-purpose wheat flour, especially bread flour containing more protein, 12 to 14%, is recommended for high-quality bread. If one uses flour with a lower protein content, 9 to 11%, to produce bread, a shorter mixing time is required to develop gluten strength properly. An extended mixing time leads to oxidization of the gluten dough, which gives the finished product a whiter crumb instead of the cream color preferred by most artisan bakers. Wheat flour, in addition to its starch, contains 3 water-soluble protein groups: albumin, globin, and proteose. The 2 water-insoluble protein groups, gluten and ghalatin. When flour is mixed with water, the water-soluble proteins dissolve, leaving the gluten and ghalatin to form the structures of the resulting bread. When relatively dry dough is worked with by kneading, or wet dough is allowed to rise for a long time, see no knead bread. Gluten forms strands of long, thin, chain-like molecules, while the shorter ghalatin forms bridges between the strands of gluten. The resulting networks of strands produced by these proteins are known as gluten. The gluten development improves. The dough is allowed something liquids, water, or some other liquid is used to form the flour into a paste or dough. The weight of liquid required varies. Recipes by a ratio of 3 parts liquid to 5 parts flour is common for yeast breads. Recipes that use steam as the primary leveling method may have a water liquid content in exceeds of 1 part liquid to 1 part flour instead of water. Recipes may use liquids such as milk or other daily dairy products, including buttermilk or yogurt. Fruit juice or eggs these contribute additional sweetness.
We gotta be quick. Okay.
Water, fats, and shortness fats,
it was already out.
butter, oil, vegetable oils, lard, that contains eggs, affects the development
Go. Okay, get it out.
breads
Okay.
by coating the lubricant
Okay,
of
so-
the individual strands of protein. They also help hold
Okay.
the structure together. If too much fat is included in the bread dough, the lubrication
Yeah,
fluid
what?
causes the protein structures to divide. A fat content of approximately 3% by weight is the concentration that provides the greatest leveling action. In addition,
Oh, yeah,
it goes on leveling fats also serve to tenerize breads and reduce rushness. Bread improvers and dough conditioners are often used in producing commercial breads to reduce the time needed for rising and to improve texture and volume of the substance. And they're used to be oxidization agents to strengthen the dough, reducing agents to develop gluten, and reducing mixing time, amplifiers to strengthen the dough, or provide the properties such as making slicing easier to enzymes to increase gas production. Salt is often used to enhance flavor and restrict yeast activity. It also affects the crumb and overall texture by stabilizing and strengthening gluten. Some artisan bakers forego early addition of salt to the dough, whether wholemeal or refined, and wait until a 20-minute rest to allow the dough to idealize leveling. Leveling is the process of adding gas to the dough before or during the baking process to make produce lighter, more easily chewed bread. Most breads eaten in the West is leveled. Chemicals. A simple technique for leveling bread is to use the gas-producing chemicals. There are 2 common methods. The first is to use baking powder or self-rising flour that includes baking powder. The second includes an acidic agent such as buttermilk and not baking soda. The reaction of the acid with soda produces gas chemically leavened by bread are called quick breads and soda breads. This method is commonly used to make muffins, pancakes, American-style biscuits, and quick breads such as banana bread. Many breads are leveled by yeast. The yeast commonly used for leveling bread is the same species of the brewing alcoholic beverages. This yeast ferments such as carbohydrates in the flour, including many yeast sugar, producing carbon dioxide. Commercial bakers often leaven their dough with commercially produced yeast. Baker's yeast has an advantage of producing uniform, quick, and reliable results because it is obtained from pure culture. Many artisans and bakers produce their own yeast with a growth culture if kept in the right conditions. It provides leavening many years. Bake yeast and sourdough methods follow the same pattern. Water is mixed with flour, salt, and the leveling agent. Other agents, species, herbs, fats, seeds, fruits, etc. are not needed to bake breads are often used. Mixed dough is then allowed to rise one or more times. Along the rising time results in more flavors, so bakers often punch down the dough and let it rise again. The loaves are formed, and then after an optional final rising time, the break is best in the oven. Many breads are made from a straight dough, which means that all the ingredients are combined in one step and the dough is baked right after the rising time. Others are made in a pre-ferment, which the leveling agent is combined with some of the flour and the water a day or so, and for baking and ferment overnight. On the day of baking, the rest of the ingredients are added, and the process continues with the straight dough. This process is a more flavorful bread with better texture. Many bakers see the starter method as a compromise, betraying the reliable results of baker's yeast and flavor with more complex cereal of longer fermentation. It also allows a baker to use a minimal amount of baker's yeast, which was scarce and expensive when it first became available. Most yeast ferments falls into one of the category Polish or Polish, loose term textured mix composed with roughly equal amounts of flour and water by weight. Big stiff mixture with a higher proportion of flour, which simply a proportion of dough reserved for the previous batch.